upwards of 65% of all the money ever minted are not in the markets that minted them. So what's that money doing? Nothing. It's just sitting there.
Foreign currency fundraising, extremely niche.
Should someone be making money on charity?
Have you ever met any governments or any case where like, I don't want to receive any more cash?
Oh jeez, yeah. Fade to black.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of
Passion Project Japan.
I'm Theo,
And I'm Gia.
and today our special guest is Quinn. This is our first episode in our new
Tokyo.
studio. Yes, we have moved to Tokyo, and now we are gonna restart Passion Project Japan, and we are very honored and glad to have Quinn as our very first guest, all the way from Boston.
All the way from Nihonbashi.
Yeah, so Quinn, you want to give like a short introduction? about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone, I'm Quinn. I've known Theo for a few years now, actually, for some of his work outside of Passion Project Japan, and we just met very recently, and for the first time today in person.
Yes.
So happy to be here and talk about something that I think a lot of people don't know much about. So looking forward to getting into it.
Sick. Yeah.
So we have prepared like a short, a pocket here that is full of coins. Currency.
Currency.
It's important.
Pocket full of change.
That'll become important later.
So I travel to Singapore a lot because I have like some relatives there. But whenever I come back from the travel, I always have some extra coins, and I don't really know what to do with it. So, what about you, Theo? You also have some euros here. You were in Finland,
I
right?
went to Finland last year, and like I have a bunch of euros. Like maybe like 20 euros. That's not really in this economy. In Japan, I mean 20 euros goes a long way, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Like 14 Sing dollars. I think I have some US dollars here somewhere. Yeah. So I basically never get rid of like all this loose change. I'm always like, I'll save it for when I go back to the country, because I always expect to go back to the country, and I'll use it again. Yeah. But there's other ways to use this foreign currency, right?
That's true. Yeah. So it's not an isolated issue. Basically, everyone has a drawer or a couch cushion or a jar where they have all this extra money, and not everyone travels all the time. Some people go once, some people go twice. But at the end of the day, there are currencies that just end up stuck. So what can we do with those? And what I would suggest is that you can actually help your local economy. You can help your local charities, and maybe you can even help yourself by donating that money.
Donate this money in Japan.
Yes. So that's kind of the interesting concept, is that most charities, domestic charities, only fundraise in local currency. And for my other Japanese residents here, you might realize that the Japanese yen is not doing so great right now. So a foreign currency donation actually has a lot more value than a Japanese yen donation. But most organizations are unable to unlock that value because domestic banking can't really deal with foreign currency.
So how does that work? So let's say I'm coming back from my trip. Let's say I went to like Finland, and I'm coming back and I realize I have like 5 euros or spare change. I'm at the airport. Like, does foreign currency, like charity, mean that I go and exchange this 5 euros for yen and donate it? Or
So no, it's actually much easier. A great example would be an organization like UNICEF that has actually been doing this for decades. So way back in the 80s and 90s, on flights and in the airport, you would see these bins, essentially these clear plastic boxes that are located next to the baggage claim or next to the exits or arrival terminal, where you can just walk by and drop in your foreign currency, and that's the end of it. You don't have to do anything else. The unseen forces, me, behind this idea essentially are the ones who do all the legwork, and ultimately the benefit of the deposit from that money goes back to the charity. So it's no actual exchange required, nothing like that. It's just drop and go.
I've actually seen those boxes in airport before, but I don't really see a lot of like Bitcoins, for example. I only see maybe $1-2. So does it take a lot of work to like sort it out and give it back to like where it should be?
It is I shouldn't out myself like this, but it is a Herculean task. The amount of work and behind the scenes operations is just it's staggering. But yeah, after years and years and years and years of more or less kind of tailoring this business model and this operational model, we have found a way to do this very efficiently. And we are not the only ones. There are organizations in countries around the world that have been doing this for years and years and years on a more limited scale. And I'd like to talk about that a bit during the podcast today, but really focusing on the exchange aspect of the currency. So these are basically currency exchange businesses that are helping charities to do this for profit. So they are companies, they're buying the currency, and then they will, work with other businesses in places around the world to sell the currency and then repatriate it that way.
Right.
But in that kind of transaction, everyone is making money, which is not a bad thing. Capitalism is a good thing. But that ultimately means that, at the end of the day, the charities or these social organizations that are conducting the collections are going to see less of that money in their pocket. So what we've tried to do is rethink how that works. And yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
So, before we go into the weeds of how it works and everything, I kind of want to take a step back and ask, since this is Passion Project Japan, kind of how you found your passion for this, and what is your background, what led you to Japan, and
do foreign currency fundraising.
Okay, foreign currency fundraising, extremely niche. Before I met you, I don't think I've ever those three words have never been put together before in my life. So how did you even find your way into this field?
That's a complex question. To give the short and sweet of it, I've been working in the fintech space in Japan for this organization that essentially conducts a variety of operations related to financial services, innovative financial services. And one of those businesses is, and we mentioned it before, Pocket Change. So Pocket Change is essentially a value exchange kiosk that's not dissimilar to Coinstar in the United States, where foreign travelers or domestic travelers can drop their foreign currency into the machine and exchange it not for other foreign currency, but for e-money or digital value services. So think in Japan, Denshi Money, Suica, Passmo, Wayon, Nanako, or for places like the United States, Apple Pay, Google Pay, Walmart, Uber, things like that. And one of the problems that they have is that they also accept coins in addition to bills, and coins are very difficult to liquidate. So when I had come on as the director of overseas business development for this company prior to the Olympics, they had what they called the penny problem. And the penny problem was basically just a warehouse full of pennies, and it was a big problem. So I had to find this solution to deposit this foreign currency outside of Japan. And people will look at you strange when you contact them by email and say, hey, I have 2 million pennies that I want to send you. It's a bit difficult, but after years and years and years, we essentially got this business model down, where we started working with these businesses that I mentioned before that were doing kind of this either currency exchange business or this foreign currency fundraising adjacent business. So we came up with a number of partners to address the currencies on the machine, like the euro and the US dollar and the Korean won and da-da-da-da-da. And then COVID happened. Yeah. And COVID was a very difficult time for the travel business. So, through the natural course of business development, I was looking for ways to help the company become more efficient and to maybe make a bit more money and to basically streamline things. And one of the things the Pocket Change machine does is it allows for any currencies the machine doesn't recognize, they can be donated. So we've been working recently with the UNICEF, JCV, which is the Japan Committee for Vaccines, and a few other charities here in Japan. And what we would do is we would take that mixed foreign currency, which we would then collect from the machines, and donate it directly to UNICEF. And then UNICEF has to deal with that. So that means UNICEF has to have a big operation locally where they're doing this business. And UNICEF is a charity, they're not a business. So they're using volunteers, we assume. And they eventually have to send that money overseas. It's a huge thing. So I had this idea that, I promise I'm going somewhere with this. I had this idea that we could maybe work with one of our partners who does this business in Canada, and we could send the foreign currency to him. So I sent this very quick, simple email like 2 years ago that basically said, hey, I have a bunch of mixed foreign currency I want to send to you. And he said, well, I'd love to deal with that. But the Canadian regulations just changed. So we actually can't import mixed currency into Canada anymore because Canadian customs says we don't know how much it's worth because it's not counted.
Right. Okay.
So, now we have a problem. And then one email turned into 2 emails, turned into 4 emails. And all of a sudden, what we realized is, well, if we can't bring the foreign currency to Canada, maybe we can bring Canada to the foreign currency.
Wow.
And this sparked this idea of, why don't we just do this kind of cash-based operations, sorting, repatriation from Japan? And here we are.
So the idea is basically like taking the mixed foreign currency, sorting through it, and then sending that known amount and money to, for example, Canada, for example, Korea, America.
That's exactly right. So sending it to partners around the world to do the eventual deposit and the remittance back, and then sending the remaining balance to charities. That's exactly right.
Wow. So you're in the fintech space, but were you always in the fintech space?
No. Actually, I came. My background's in chemistry, so I'm a biochemist by trade. Yeah. So I was in the cosmetic space before that. So working with all the Japanese cosmetic firms, and I really greatly enjoyed my time in the cosmetics space. But Japan, with any industry, has very specific. I have to be very careful with what I say here.
Real censor.
Yeah. Well, I found the industry to be a bit conservative and traditional for my tastes, and I was looking for something that was a bit more fast-paced and open-minded when it came to younger people and new ideas.
Yeah.
And I found that Japan's startup space and innovative social entrepreneurship sector was really an exciting place to be. And I think it continues to be. Just based on the guests you've had on the podcast and some of the stuff that I've listened to, there are some really cool ideas. Yeah. And I'm excited to see some of that actually gaining traction in Japan for the first time in what feels like decades. So.
Hey guys, if you like the content that you're seeing so far, please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube at Passion Project Japan. We love to make more content for you guys, and seeing our subscriber count go up is a good way to let us know that we're on the right track to making the best content we can. So remember to subscribe. There seems to be this natural progression of foreign currency, exchanging those foreign currency, getting the money back, and then donating it to charity. I think that for many people, I mean, maybe for myself even, if I think about that, I was like, oh wait, that's such a good business because now I have the money and I can do something with it instead of like donating it to charity. So like, how did you decide like that you want to channel this money into like fundraising, into charity specifically?
I think, I wish I could say I was there 30 years ago. I think it came from a practical need. So, there are organizations around the world, and I'll specifically highlight Ireland and the UK, charity organizations that receive nearly 100% of their yearly operating budget only from foreign currency fundraising.
100%?
Nearly 100%. So the money is not small. It is very, very significant when you're talking about the NPO and NGO space because funding is critical to operations and they don't operate for profit. So the reality is that every cent counts, every coin counts. So, on the pocket change side of things, it just seemed like the logical progression. This is, the way that we want to move the business so that we can support ourselves and grow Pocket Change and GCS. I don't know if I've said the name of the company, by the way. It's Global Coin Solutions, Japan. How we can grow the organization while also supporting social organizations, around the world.
When you start this business here in Japan, is it because you're already in Japan, or is there like any specific reason why you? Okay, I want to stay here. I want to start my coin sorting, foreign currency exchange, fundraising business here.
That's another really great question. Well, the first easiest one would be that I met my wife here in Japan, so here we are. The second would be that Japan's a really lovely place to live. It's clean, it's safe, it's comfortable. The food is really, really great, and I feel very passionately about Japan as a place. Not only from a cultural perspective, but from all the time that I've spent here and my own personal feeling about it. And then the second reason, which is the much more practical one, is that while there are businesses that have been doing elements of what we're trying to do around the world, none of them operate in Asia. So, what really the nice part about Japan is that it has proximity to a lot of places where currency repatriation has not really been considered before. So Japan is, a hop, skip, and a jump from Southeast Asia, from Australia and Oceania, from mainland Europe, if you want to fly that way. I mean, there are a lot of benefits to that, and one of the things that we're really trying to do is connect all of these companies and organizations together by creating a web. Right. So right now there's a lot of coverage in Europe. I mentioned the UK, I mentioned Ireland, and North America, where my partner operates his business out of Canada. But nobody's doing this in Asia. So what happens to all the Asian currency? What happens to the Indian rupee? What happens to the Singapore dollar? What happens to the Hong Kong dollar, the Chinese yuan, the Japanese yen? And the answer is a lot of things, but none of them are as productive as they would be if there was actually an organization that was operating here, facilitating the deposit and the return of these currencies. So that's really what we're trying to do, is fill this niche.
So basically, Japan is first, like, very strategically, geographically good place for you to start this business, and also it's because your personal life lies in here, right? So
yes.
Well, it is an exciting place too for me, Japan.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you chose Japan as like the base, or maybe Japan chose you. Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's accurate. Yeah.
Right?
I think Japan has a way of getting its hooks into people. So
Natural progression.
Yeah, I wouldn't think about it any differently now. It didn't. It just seemed logical. Like, I didn't really think too much about that when we're here. I see the need in the market, and let's try. Let's see what happens.
Global Coin Solutions is the name of your company,
It is.
GCS for short.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We finally mentioned it.
Yeah. We got there.
That's the thing that is doing this counting, sorting, repatriation to different countries, then receiving the money back, and then processing it and donating it to charity.
Correct.
But GCS itself is not a charity.
It's not.
It's a for-profit business.
It is. There's this idea that, should someone be making money on charity? And, the reality behind that is it's a traditional way of thinking, and it's a bit flawed, because it's not like we're taking money that was already destined to go to charity. It's money that is stuck. It's new money for charity. So I'm not saying I want to be in between someone who donates $100. If someone wants to give 10,000 yen or $100 to a charity, I don't want to be in the middle taking some percentage of that. But the reality is that foreign currency fundraising has a lot of back work. I said Herculean. It's just a massive amount of infrastructure, logistics, and just manpower associated with it. So we're not talking about taking money from someone who's donating, $5 directly to the charity, when that $5 is donated in a place where they can deposit the $5, like in the US, or 500 yen in Japan. What we're talking about is unlocking the potential for new charitable earnings. So we give charities the tools to immediately start foreign currency fundraising without any kind of overhead. So they just place a bin, they send envelopes, they speak with their audience and say, hey, we're happy to report that you can now donate foreign currency to our charity. And that's all they have to do. But there is this idea that, how much are you taking? You're going to be making money from this. Yeah, but I'm also providing this service essentially to do this. But that way of thinking, it's really, really heavily ingrained in the kind of nonprofit space. And there's this really great entrepreneur and philanthropist in the United States who's actually based out of Boston. His name's Dan Pelota, and he's pioneering this idea of unlocking the power of fundraising and profit for charities by rethinking this idea that charities shouldn't make money. And while I don't want to, I can go off on this and do at least another hour just talking about this guy. Check out the book and check out the movie. Both really, really great.
What's the name of the
Uncharitable. It's called Uncharitable. And one of the simplest ideas is, how do you encourage a bright young person who graduates from a top tier university to go and work and solve really difficult social problems, like, working for an organization like UNICEF or Red Cross, or, a domestic violence, charity or child hunger charity, when they're competing against McKinsey and Bain and, these huge companies that can pay them more money. The idea that we should not be allowing capitalism to function within the structure of the charity space is, there's a limit, of course. Ultimately, we don't want, everyone who's working with charities who are making, hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars. The majority of that money should go to, the social causes themselves, and it does. But when we limit our way of thinking like this, it really, it can really have a profound effect on the charity or the organization's ability to operate.
I totally agree with that, because listening to your story itself, I feel like you should get paid a lot just by sorting out all the money, because it takes a lot of, manpower. And me, if I work on this job, I also want to get paid, right? And even working for charity, I still need to sustain a decent way of life. So let's say if someone wants to donate $100 straight to UNICEF, then they can donate it. We don't take anything.
Of course.
But what you're doing here is just, we're a middleman. We're trying to solve something that is already stuck there, and we're donating these fund to charity. That's completely different, right?
It is. Yeah, it's different money. It's at the end of the day, it's just different money, and I think that's what makes foreign currency fundraising so unique. Is that, for example, because we're in Japan, I'll use Japan. There's a lot of business travel, international business travel that comes out of Japan because it's a hub. So if you're a Japanese salaryman or a businessman and you go overseas to China, for example, and you conduct your business when you're there, and when you come back, you reach into your left pocket and you have Japanese yen to pay for the train or anything like that, and you reach into your right pocket and you have Chinese yuan. Which one are you more likely to donate? The reality is that I can't use Chinese yuan in Japan. So, and it's a problem because I'm just holding this money now, these coins. It's basically, to most people, they'll never hear me say this again, garbage. So I might as well put it in the donation bin. So what we've found, and while there haven't been any studies to show this, I'd stake my life on it. People are significantly more likely to donate foreign currency because it just doesn't have the value to them. They're not going to, not be able to afford groceries because they gave their Singaporean dollars or their Singaporean coins to, so that's one of the nice parts about it, is that you can participate in social change and social fundraising without actually having a really large effect on your own life. So you're not asking someone to go without.
What should people do?
Follow Passion Project Japan on Instagram and TikTok.
What we're trying to do is not just related to charities, but also to companies. So the example we were using was an organization like McKinsey. We could talk to McKinsey or these other, firms, companies, organizations, and just say, poll your employees and ask them what kind of social causes or charities are important to you. So if McKinsey talks to their consultants and 70% of them come back and say, we really care about food insecurity in children, or we really care about earthquake recovery in Japan, then what GCS can do is connect McKinsey directly with charities that are related to this cause that they care about, and we will build the entire program for them. That means supplying them with the envelopes. That means supplying them with the boxes. That means, connecting them if a contract is required. And then that's it. We will conduct the entire program for them. We'll go and pick up the money when it's collected. We'll process it. We'll make the charity whole, and then we'll report the value to both organizations so that McKinsey knows how much money they've raised for the charity, and the charity receives that money. And if you're a company like McKinsey and you have consultants flying all around the world, what better way to connect that money once it makes it back into the McKinsey office with an organization that needs it than by having the collections box in the lobby. I mean, it's a win-win. There's this idea that I've been kind of obsessed with, since we've been redoing the marketing for the company, and it's this idea of Sanpo Yoshi, which is roughly translates to three-way satisfaction. And it's this idea that in your transaction chain, whether you're providing a good or a service, all parties in the chain should benefit. So I think the traditional capitalist model is, I have a product, I want to make money, and everything else is someone else's concern. Whether or not my product is a good fit for the customer, that's the customer's concern. Whether or not my product is good for society, capitalism is not great for that. But what we want to do is we want to provide value to everyone. So at GCS, I think we're the perfect example of Sanpo Yoshi because, we are a company. We are a for-profit business. So we make money. We expand our services. We pay our employees well. And we get to expand what we do to other charities and other organizations, while simultaneously our product and our service is literally just raising money for charities around the world and increasing the sustainability of cash, which benefits everyone, benefits the countries, it benefits the producers, and ultimately living in a more sustainable society is a pro for all. So this idea of Sanpo Yoshi, which comes from the Omi merchants. Actually, even last weekend, I was speaking at Tokyo Innovation Base, and there was a KO professor, Professor Iguchi, who had mentioned it in his presentation. So I'm really glad that it's not just like this Gaijin Japan hole that I fell into and saw.
It's not like orientalizing orientalist view.
No, it's a real thing. I Googled it, so.
I want to pick out like a certain phrase that you mentioned there, sustainability of cash. So what does like that whole idea of sustainability of cash mean?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's probably one of the biggest departures that we've had from the traditional GCS model and how we're changing now. And, some people have asked us, well, is what you're doing innovative? And the foreign currency fundraising side, not necessarily because it's been around for so long, but cash sustainability is a huge one. So, basically, there were studies that were published that are in some of our marketing materials by the Eurozone mints, who are the producers of the money, as well as the U.S. Federal Reserve, that suggest that upwards of 65% of all the money ever minted, which means 65% of U.S. dollars, 65% of euros, of Japanese yen, are not in the markets that minted them, which means that 65% of all U.S. dollars are not in the United States, which it's just mind-boggling. I mean, so what's that money doing? When overseas, nothing. It's just sitting there. And, maybe it's under a couch cushion. Maybe it's, in a bank or vault somewhere,
Maybe it's here.
Maybe it's maybe it's in a fountain. Like,
is it a well? It's a wishing well.
Yeah. It's crazy. And you might ask, well, there has to be some sort of system in place to return the money. And it's actually the exact opposite. There are no systems that we are really familiar with in major economies for the return and repatriation of cash once it's been minted. So the only solution is just make more money. And thankfully, for the first time in the last few years, as reported by Currency Research and Reconnaissance International, which are these really great organizations dedicated to cash sustainability and cash news, sustainability and reduction of emissions and circulation are the primary issues that are facing the mints and facing the producers and the circulators of cash. So we are trying to partner directly with the government, directly with the mint, directly with these money movers to return the money at our own cost. So we're not charging them anything. And in fact, many times we actually pay them a small commission. So not only are we solving this problem for them, but we're actually producing revenue for them. So if I send $100,000 US back to the US Mint, they might take 5% of that. It's small money, but it's still like we're providing a service and also benefiting the receiver for this service. And this is probably the largest change in thinking for GCS in Japan.
Wait, sorry. I mean, I didn't understand. So how does that work? So let's say you collect $100,000 US dollars here, you send it to the US mint.
Sure.
Yeah. And then they will pay you like $100,000 US dollars equivalent of Japanese yen.
It depends on the receiver. So every country is a little bit different.
Right.
But essentially, like if we take $1, just as an easy example, if we collect $1 and we bring it to our facility and we process it and we say, okay, $1, this is what it's worth. And then we send it to our partner in the United States or our partner whoever, whatever kind of cash it is, whichever country it's going to. Depending on what their system is, they might say, okay, well, you sent $1, we're going to give you 95 cents because they have some cost for receiving the money. Or they just say, well, we're providing you a service. So, okay, that's fine, of course, because it costs money. Everything costs money. It's just the nature of things. And then of that 95 cents, it gets sent back to us by electronic wire. So now the physical money is in the country. The wire comes to the GCS. We take our fee, which is generally, it depends on the specific organization, and the composition of the business is roughly 30%. And the reason it's 30% is 20% of it covers our general costs, which include insurance, logistic, labor, warehousing, everything under the sun.
Yeah.
And then 10% of that, or 10 cents of that dollar, is our profit, so to speak. And we use that to expand our services and to basically offer this to other new charities. So ultimately, on that 95 cents, about 65 cents of that makes its way back into the pocket of the charity. And if we were working with an organization that didn't take anything, so I'd like to highlight two really good ones. One is the BSP, which is the Central Bank of the Philippines. It's Banco Central Filipinas. They are really strong in the repatriation and circulation space. And they have literal programs. It's one of the only ones that I know about where they partner with organizations like GCS to facilitate the return of cash back to the Philippines. And it's amazing because they don't have to mint more money, which is great because, for lower value currencies, it might cost more money than to mint 1 peso could be more than 1 peso is actually worth. Which is it's a net negative. And then the second thing, it's an island nation. So circulation is a huge problem because you have to get the money from Manila or from, whichever island, wherever it's minted.
Islands,
exactly. Right. So instead we just say, where would you like us to send the money? We'll send it to it on our own cost. That's part of our business model. It's built in. So everybody wins.
Adding on to that, so because the Philippines government was very open to receiving cash, have you ever met any governments or any case where I don't want to receive any more cash?
Oh geez, yeah. Fade to black. So the two major issues that we face within our business is one, awareness. So nobody knows about this. No one talks about this, despite the fact that it's been around. And it seems like I've never spoken with someone and they're like, "That's a terrible idea." Everyone is like, "Why don't we do this?" It's an optics thing and a communications thing. So I'm hoping by speaking with you guys and going on different podcasts and talking about this more, that this idea will spread. That's number one. So that's kind of the external facing.
The idea of foreign currency fundraising.
Yeah. And then on the internal side, it's cross-border movement of money is complicated. It's very, very complicated. And there are countries that I could say less than savory things about. But what I'll say instead is that cash is very sensitive. It's a very difficult commodity. And what we're doing is very unique. So, trying to jump through the regulatory hurdles that might not even exist for certain countries. They don't even really think about this kind of business. So we're talking about changing really heavily regulated import rules and regulations about declarations. It's complicated. It's really, really complicated. So there are certain countries that we struggle with, and I hope if any of them are watching, you will consider helping us to do this business so that we can benefit not only your local economy, but hopefully bring our business model to your country and help local charities.
There's this talk right now of society changing into cashless society, right? And would you ever feel maybe 30, 40 years from now, or actually not even 30, 40 years from now, for example, China right now, it's pretty much all cashless.
That is maybe the number one question I get asked, and I think it's very complicated. That's what I'll say. So I'll give you a few sides of it. The first side is that there are other organizations akin to GCS that are conducting a very small piece of this business, which I talked about earlier, mostly exchange businesses. And what they find is that, and this is going to sound a little strange, but the most profitable time for their business is when currencies are discontinued. So for example, Croatia just moved to the euro. But all the Croatian currency is still accepted. So all these people now who have Croatian currency that don't bring it to the bank, it has no value to them at all. It's not even considered necessarily currency. So they donate it, or they sell it, or they put it they put it in the trash. There's no value to them. So these businesses, the largest portion of their business comes from the discontinuation of currency. And when you think about that, there are other businesses that do what we do, but there aren't so many of them that if a currency is discontinued, we're talking about billions of dollars that then need to be returned. And another example of that would be the Eurozone in, I think it's 2004, maybe 2002, when all the countries moved away from Italy doesn't use the lira anymore. Spain doesn't use the peseta. France doesn't use the franc. You know, those currencies are still around 20 years later.
Okay.
And the banks will still accept those currencies in some cases. So like Germany will still accept Deutschmarks. So that currency, despite the fact that I cannot go to Germany and spend it, still has value. So from a selfish perspective, I think our business is somewhat insulated and it's protected from the discontinuation of cash. From a more regulatory perspective, you know, so I mentioned before Currency Research and Reconnaissance International. There's a lot of talk about the future of cash, and no one really knows the right answer. So people have ideas like, okay, well, we could see cash. You know, in the long term, cash becomes a bit niche and it's only used for certain types of transactions, or cash is totally outlawed and anyone using cash is going to be found to be a criminal. Like, you know, there's so many potential futures, and trying to predict which one is the right one is, you know, it's just a fool's errand. Like I wouldn't even begin to try and guess what's going to happen. And then what I'll say from what I hope doesn't come off as a selfish perspective being in the industry is that there is, to my mind, no benefit from the removal of cash as a payment instrument. So it's a net negative when you talk about taking cash away as a payment option or a payment choice for people. And I think Japan is like the perfect example of that, because you have a really old, aging population that tends to be underbanked, so they don't have electronic banking resources. Access to cash is maybe their only way of engaging with the economy. So if you're a little old lady living in the Inaka, like you're not using Wise, you're not using Revolut, like, you know, like I'm not trying to talk negatively about those services, because, you know, ultimately we should build really robust payment systems, whether they be electronic or physical. So I don't want to remove people's ability to engage with the economy in any capacity, and I think cash is really good at protecting that. The second is, you know, for a country like Japan that's plagued by natural disasters, cash doesn't go offline.
Yeah.
So like when you're talking about, you know, the Noto earthquake, or you know, big large scale tsunamis, or, you know, things that happen in Japan, why do we want to get rid of people's ability to respond flexibly to natural disasters by taking away their ability to pay if payment systems go down? And this is where I'm going to throw a little bit of shade. For countries in Europe, and for companies like, you know, Visa and MasterCard, who are like, no, cashless is the best. Even without natural disasters, cashless payment systems go down all the time. All the time. You know, we're living in the future, and, you know, there is an always online component to that, but am I allowed to say inadvertently?
No, for sure, yeah.
Shit happens. Like that's what I'll say. It's like, ultimately, we as a society should look at cash as, you know, a more mainstream component of our payment system in the long term. And I really do feel that way, whether or not I'm in the cash space or not. It's when you talk about removing a payment option and just going cashless as a business, your costs might go down slightly because cash has some sort of cost to it, but so does credit cards. Credit cards have a processing fee, you know, and those companies are making money from that. So like, you don't have to deal with the physical aspect of banking and cash, but it's not like your costs go away. And ultimately, you are excluding a bunch of people from being able to use your services. So in my neighborhood, there's a really great business. Shout out the Commissary. Really delicious place where you can eat all this food. And it's all cashless. And it's in my own neighborhood. And the number of times I've gone there and been like, oh, I don't have any credit cards on me. I don't have my phone on me. Like, I just walked out to get a quick bite to eat or something.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so you lost my business.
in Nihonbashi?
In Nihonbashi, yeah.
So surprising. Usually it's the opposite, right?
Only cash.
Cash only. I'm like, oh man, I did draw any cash.
Yeah. So I don't know. Personally, I think that the future of cash is, questionable. And I would like to believe it's safe. And the other nice thing that I'll say in defense of what we've been talking about is that you mentioned China. A lot of countries, China included, have actually been kind of halting their remove cash idea. Okay. And there are a variety of reasons for that, and I won't get into the politics and everything like that. But the United States, I believe, the UK. Sweden or Switzerland, they've all drafted legislation which guarantees the access to cash in perpetuity.
Okay.
So not all of this legislation has passed, and most of it is still in discussions, but most of it has bipartisan support because overall, cash is a good thing. So, and this is coming from someone who uses Suica like religiously. So, I will say that.
I've been to the airport like a couple of times. I just never really seen these like collection bins. It's not anywhere prominent.
Yeah, and that's the thing about cash is like, surprisingly, I hope the cash industry doesn't get me on this. It's not a very well-funded industry because it's like it's a public good. So like, despite the fact that we're talking about billions of dollars, like the companies that are operating in the space, it doesn't have the same level of like oomph around it as like IT or AI or deep tech, which is so weird because cash is everything. It's the whole economy.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not really that way. So when you say I don't see many bins around, you might not see that many bins, but how much cash is circulating, do you think, at any given time? Like in Japan, the estimates are $8 billion of foreign currency, not yen.
Wow.
Yeah.
$8 billion?
Just foreign currency from people who went overseas in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and just never left Japan again. Brought money back or whatever. There's so many ways that foreign currency travels across borders and then just gets stuck. So even if you don't see many bins, if we're catching 0.0001%, we're still talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not small.
Yeah, right. If you imagine everyone has this much money in foreign currency in Japan, and then you like do some math, multiply the whole Japanese population, then it's a lot of money. You will never think about it, right?
I might just give you like the whole thing right now, Like, So what's next for GCS? Where do you see yourself going?
Well, yeah.
Newly establish your headquarters in Tokyo?
Newly established, yeah. So August 23rd was our official establishment date. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. We have our warehouse is down by the port where we do all of our cash processing. I can't tell you exactly where. And And our office is in Minato by Tamachi Station. So what's next? I think we want to expand and connect with more charities and organizations. We want to become much more efficient with how we repatriate cash, which means talking with more governments, which means passing more regulation that's pro-cash or pro-movement of cash. And then my own ambition is to look outside of cash. So we've spent an hour now talking about cash, but I see things like, and my partner's probably shaking his head watching this now, Suica, for example. So for most of COVID, there was a huge deficit on the chips, the NFC chips, because basically there were supply chain issues, and for that reason, the Suica had been discontinued for a very long time.
We went to mobile, everyone was
exactly, and I got this idea. I have to give credit where credit's due. Charles McJilton, who was the CEO of Second Harvest Japan, at one time had showed me when I came to visit him. We were working on a project. These leftover Suica cards that people had been donating. Ooh. And what I realized is that the cards themselves have a 500 yen deposit on them, and then nobody ever spends every yen. You can't. I mean, it's like a gift card, basically. Like you're not going to go and say, I'd like to do a transaction for 192 yen, please. Like you do a transaction for 167 yen, there's 20 yen on there. And what I got to thinking about was, if we're doing physical donations, why not consider electronic donations as well? So I would like to do something where we could partner with JR East or partner with the rail lines so that when someone's leaving Japan, because they now have the welcome Suica, the traveler Suica, they can donate their card with all the leftover. We'll give it back to JR for free. Just take the card, keep the deposit. We'll just take the leftover yen and donate it all to charity. That's what I'd like to see. Ooh. So I'd really like to see a transition to more sustainable donations and more sustainable philanthropy and just more common sense solutions. And then JR can reuse the chips, and then they can put a big sign up that says JR supports sustainability with the help of tourists. Beautiful marketing. Right. So at the end of the day, I'd love to see, and again, thank you, Charles, I'd love to see this type of change in thinking. People just thinking more about how we can turn waste into benefit and how we can expand the social good that we do through really small changes that we make on a day-to-day basis.
I have this Manaka card that because I use some transaction in the past, not just for like transportation, that it always have this 4 yen left in a Manaka, and like usually I'm a very like organized person, so I hate having just 4 yen left. I want to get rid of it. So if you have that service, let me know. I'll get rid of my 4 yen there.
Just drop it in.
We're working on it. So the pile of tasks to do with any new company, gigantic. So this has turned into something way bigger than we had originally anticipated, and we hope that the impact that we have had and that we can continue to have will be large. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that this is not a concept, this is not an idea, this is not something that we're trying to do. To date, GCS has processed, I don't have the exact new figures because I'm going to give you the ones from about a year ago, processed $20 million on behalf of charity organizations around the world, and that is equated to roughly 250,000 kilograms of mixed currency.
250,000 kilograms.
It's about the size of
25 tons. Is it? A ton is 1,000 kilograms, or is it?
It's 1,000. Yeah. So 250 tons.
So 250 tons.
250 tons, and that's on the low end. I think it's closer to 300 at this point.
Wow.
So we are doing this. This is happening right now, and I am excited for the future and hope that we can continue to do this.
Yeah, awesome. Where can people find GCS? Get in contact with you if they're interested to find out more.
So contact at globalcoinsolutions.com, or check out our website, which is globalcoinsolutions.com. Also has Japanese translation. So, please feel free to see the charities that we're working with. Please feel free to learn more about us, and reach out if you have anything. And one last thing I want to say is just a huge thanks to my partner, Scott Hutchings in Canada, who had originally pioneered this concept, with Global Coin Solutions operating for close to a decade now in Toronto, and partnering with a bunch of really great organizations, including the Air Canada Foundation, the Durham Children's Aid Foundation, Currency for Kids, and just a litany of other really great programs. And I couldn't have done this without him. Really special guy. So here's to the future, and hopefully we can do this.
Awesome.
Do this big.
Do you want to shout out your own? Like, do you have anything for yourself, like your LinkedIn or?
Connect with me. I love talking about coins. I literally have dreams about coins at this point. I'm hoping that's going to stop. If you're interested to learn more about it, you just want to talk about coins, Japan, business in Japan, culture, whatever, I'm game. So hit me up.
Yeah. So,
and one last shout out. Thank you, Passion Project Japan.
Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. I'm so glad that you guys have been providing this platform for foreign entrepreneurs here in Japan, because I think that Japan is changing, and I think that we should change with it. And I'm just so glad that this space exists where we can talk about this stuff.
Thank you so much. It means so much to us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm looking out for the fruit fact.
We're gonna edit it right at the start. Yeah, but if you want to see more of our content, you can go and follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube at Passion Project Japan. You can follow us on Instagram
at Passion Project JP.
Yeah, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.